The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hey everybody, we're just gonna give it a minute and then we'll start. All right, hello everyone, and welcome to this 22-minute webinar, Design to Manufacture with Solidworks 2018. My name is Allison Savell, and I'll be your host for today. Let's jump right in and get started, since we have a lot to cover in these 22 minutes. Just a couple of quick items I want to point out before we get started. First, using GoToWebinar, please notice the full screen mode button you can move in and out of. We suggest using full screen. If you have any questions during the presentation, you can enter them into the questions section, not the chat section. We'll be answering them after the presentation. Also, we have several poll questions during the presentation to keep it a bit interactive, and we ask that you answer these multiple choice questions quickly so we can keep within the time frame. I'll be letting everyone know the results as well. Please note that you'll be able to download a recording of the webinar after the presentation as we are recording it. So let's get you guys all warmed up and we'll jump into our first poll question. Let's see. Launch. Please pick the description that matches the jobs you perform most often. You can select 2. All right. Okay. Give it a second more. All right, looks like about 75% of you are all mechanical engineers. We got about 24% of you that are CAM programmers or production planners, with about 18% that are managers. So with that, I wanted to introduce you to our rockstar presenter today. With us, we have Craig Tyrion, who is a senior SolidWorks portfolio manager working in product management. Craig, it's all you.
Great. Hi, everybody, and welcome to this presentation of SolidWorks 2018. And what we're going to talk about is basically how people with SolidWorks 2018 can get from their concept, the idea in their head, to a manufactured part very, very quickly. All right. Now, if you've noticed over the last few years and last couple of releases of SolidWorks, we've added quite a bit of functionality to SolidWorks. So first, if you look at our design area, SolidWorks was always very well known for SolidWorks Standard, SolidWorks Professional, and SolidWorks Premium. Those are our core products, CAD products, 3D CAD products. But over the years, we've been expanding our portfolio of offerings to be able to handle more of what companies do. All right. So if you think of your product development process, it's not just mechanical engineers. You have electrical engineers, PCB designers, CAM programmers, quality assurance people and technicians, people who build shop floor and assembly documentation. So all the way through, we're providing products, capabilities within SolidWorks, within that one environment, so everybody on your team, on your product development team, can get their job done. Now, recently in SolidWorks 2018, we added SolidWorks CAM. It's part of, if you have SolidWorks Standard, all right, and if you're on subscription, you have access to SolidWorks CAM. We also offer SolidWorks CAM Professional, so these are new for 2018. And on the PDM and management side, data management side, we have SolidWorks Manage, which is a new offering, which extends the capability of SolidWorks PDM. Then, of course, we have our collaboration tools, e-drawings. And of course, please, if you haven't yet, check out mysolidworks.com, which is the place where you can go to find out everything about SolidWorks. Okay, so you can see that our portfolio has really expanded over the last few years. And the main reason for this is we want to enable concurrent and integrated design to manufacturing product development, all right? We want you to be able to do everything that it takes to develop a product all within SolidWorks, and of course managed by SolidWorks PDM products so that you can control revisions and release levels, things like that. So if you look at the top process, typical serial design process, all right, design to manufacturing process, that's the one, you know, we see out there most often today, all right, which is maybe in design you're using SolidWorks, but maybe in electrical you're using another product. Maybe for CAM you're using something that's not integrated with SolidWorks, you know, or inspection you're doing something manually, maybe using spreadsheets. So what you end up with is this process that is kind of like islands of automation, right? So within that task, maybe you're able to do really well, but when you have to transfer that data to somebody else downstream, or when you're trying to collaborate with those people, it's very difficult because you're using tools that don't communicate well with each other. Who owns the master part of the geometry? Who owns, you know, is it, if you're making a plastic part, does the designer own the master, or does the mold maker own the master, the guy designing the tooling? So there's all these questions, and there's a lot of data being thrown around. And between each one of these stages, people have to wait for the other person to be done with their job. All right. And typically in a serial design process, you hear terms like design freeze or freeze for production, right? Because people know that it's very difficult after that point to incorporate major or even minor changes. All right. It's very difficult because sometimes you have to start at the beginning. People have to actually often throw away things that they've already been working on. For instance, in CAM programming, they might have to start all over again. So when you have a system where you're using a lot of different tools and they're not integrated, it takes a lot of time to export and import and repair data in that cycle. With SolidWorks, you can implement a concurrent and integrated design and manufacturing process. And that means that everybody is using the same CAD data underneath, whether you're making a drawing or you're making an assembly or you're using SolidWorks electrical and you're making a printed circuit board, or if you're doing SolidWorks CAM and you're machining the part, you're creating the CAM program, you're all working on the same data. So if there's a change, everything updates. So SolidWorks enables the concurrent and integrated design and manufacturing process. So let's look a little bit more at that. When we say, what is a 3D CAD model centric process, all right? Well, when you look at this, there are a lot of different tasks that you do, right? So there's, like we said, mechanical design, electrical, people who build technical documentation like shop floor documentation, user guides, field service manuals. There's people who do inspection, CAM programming, tooling, mold design tooling, and progressive die tooling, things like that, estimating, people who are specialists in doing simulation and validation. You have your outside vendors, and they may be using other tools. And then, of course, you have sales and marketing, right? And they're looking for great images. They're looking for animations, things like that they can put on the website. They can show their customers. All this information, you really want it tied to the 3D model, all right? Because if that model changes, everybody gets that update, all right? So let's look at, actually, we have our second poll question because we're trying to find out a little bit more about how your companies work. So Allison?
All right, the next question, please select the following descriptions which most closely describes your company.
So what we're looking for is your company mainly a design firm? Do they do design and assembly? Maybe they do design and assembly, but they outsource manufacturing. So just trying to get a breakdown.
All right, we'll give it a second more.
Yeah, give it a little while. This one takes a little while to read the descriptions.
Yeah. All right. I'm gonna close it. I'll share the results with everybody. You can see we got about 52, mainly design and assembly manufacturer here.
Yep.
All right. Back to
Great.
you.
Excellent. So let's look at what I'm talking about when I say, why is it important that you have an integrated process? Let's say you have a design initiated change. Your engineering department, your mechanical engineering department, maybe your industrial designer, maybe you get new requirements from your customer or from your marketing department, all right? So in a mechanical design or a design initiated, basically the designer can update the CAD model. Then what you want to do is be able to manage that. You want to make sure that that CAD model, what that change that was made, you want to make sure it's approved. So that's where like SolidWorks PDM would come in. And then you'd be able to notify everybody, hey, there's been a change to the CAD model, and everybody would get that change, right? So that's very simple. That's the traditional, you know, if people are thinking design change, they're thinking, yeah, the engineer makes a design change. But what about a manufacturing initiated change, right? So in other words, you might have your mold designer might come back and say, hey, I can't make this part. It's too difficult. I have too many side actions on it. Maybe you want to make a change from manufacturing. Well, manufacturing can do the same thing. They can change the model, change the draft, maybe change some fillets that are in the model so they can machine it more easily. That gets approved, and then that goes out to everybody on the team, right? So the beauty of a concurrent and integrated environment is that anybody in the process can make the decision or make a change, and as long as it's approved, everybody can get that change and all the data updates, right? So that's the beauty. You can make changes late in the cycle. That allows you to get a better product in the end, right? Because you can iterate your design more and more. You get requirements late in the design cycle, you're not as afraid to make that design change late in the cycle because you don't have to throw all that information away. The guy doing FEA, he can just update his model. The people that are doing tech docs, they can update their model. CAM programming, they can update their model and their data will update, their tool paths will update and things like that. That's the beauty of an integrated model, of a concurrent and integrated development process. The other thing that's great about the SolidWorks design through manufacturing process is that you don't have to sacrifice best-in-class solutions for integration, right? So SolidWorks has gone out. We have great partners that we work with, but also we've been able to go out and acquire several companies and partner with several companies that provide technology that's world-class, best-in-class technology. For instance, just recently, we partnered with HDL CamWorks and brought to market SolidWorks CAM for SolidWorks 2018. If you remember, early on with Cosmos, we partnered with them for our FEA solution. So there's all these partnerships that we continue to do. When we think we find a good solution, we bring those in, but we always make sure they're integrated with SolidWorks so they fit into that concurrent and integrated model that we talk about. Let's look at a little more detail at what we mean by a design to manufacturing process solution, all right? So let's get into the details here. So I said we start with a conceptual design. So if you look at on this workflow here at the 0 point, I'm just making a 3D model without a lot of detail. Well, in 2018 at Station 1, we've actually brought into our simulation package, SolidWorks Simulation, now provides topology optimization. So the ability to say, hey, here are all my constraints, let SolidWorks or SolidWorks Simulation automatically figure out what is the best shape of my model. What is the geometry? What should it look like? So that I meet the constraints and also meet the manufacturing characteristic or manufacturing requirements. Is it going to be molded? Is it going to be cast? Is it going to be machined? I can put these parameters in and actually SolidWorks will feedback what that shape should look like. Once I have this optimized design, I may want to do my detailing on it, and I can either do 2D drawings, or even better, I can do 3D dimensioning and tolerancing. We call that model-based definition, all right? You can put all your dimensions and tolerances in the 3D model, and the beautiful thing about that is when you go to do your CAM programming with SolidWorks CAM, you can actually see all those dimensions and tolerances, and we can actually use those. We understand those dimensions and tolerances. For SolidWorks inspection, when you need to do your first article inspection documentation in your ballooning of the part, you can balloon those dimensions and tolerances and notes. Those are your inspection characteristics. Create your first article inspection. All right. You can also still do the traditional way of doing a 2D drawing also, if you want to, if that's the workflow you choose. Then we have shop floor documentation and user guides, right? So SolidWorks Composer helps out here, as well as SolidWorks itself, to create that high-end documentation that you need to send to your customers, to your field service people. And of course, that information updates when the models update. For your sales and marketing, SolidWorks Visualize gives you magazine quality images and also animations that look like real life. I mean, you can't tell the difference. If you look at a lot of these television commercials, those animations you see on television are really, a lot of times, not movies. Those are 3D CAD models that are being animated. So it's very hard to tell. So, you know, this is the kind of information. Also, augmented reality and virtual reality experiences. These are all available with SolidWorks and SolidWorks Visualize. And then finally, you have your final product that comes out the end. So there's our from concept through manufactured part with SolidWorks. So let's see this. I got a little video I want to play here. This is actually, you can find this video too at our launch site. This is actually a model that, the model we're using actually comes from Ring Brothers, one of our customers. They make components and custom parts for cars, for high-end like muscle cars, things like that. So let's go through the process of design through manufacturing with SolidWorks. So here I start with this assembly. I've got this part, this link that hasn't been detailed very much. So I'm going to use SolidWorks topology optimization. I'm going to give constraints, and I'm going to tell it how it's going to be manufactured. And what that's going to do is actually go through the model and tell me what the shape of the model, what it feels the shape of the model should be. And that's mesh geometry that I can then take and turn into solid geometry in SolidWorks. Next, I want to go and detail my model. I talked about SolidWorks MBD. These are dim expert dimensions. They're intelligent. They automatically know how to create the feature control frames, for instance, and things like that. So SolidWorks MBD allows you to fully detail and capture 3D views in your model. You can then later output as a PDF if you want, as a 3D PDF. Right? Now, you could take this model and go directly to SolidWorks CAM. SolidWorks CAM is rules-based machining. That means basically we can look at that model, we can recognize how it has to be machined, and there's a database that understands what kind of tool paths and what tools and what speeds and feeds and things I should be using to machine that model. So it really speeds up that whole process of developing tool paths. Now we also have the, like I said, you want to be integrated with our inspection product. So here we're balloon noting directly on the 3D model. You could also do that in your 2D drawing, and then directly from there, output your first article inspection documentation. SolidWorks wouldn't be, you know, it wouldn't be a complete package without SolidWorks PDM and the ability to control the entire process. Who has the right to make changes? When the changes are, can be sent to everybody and everybody gets the updates. You really want to manage the whole process with SolidWorks PDM, right? So that's basically a little video view of, you know, all the processes that are involved in kind of the concept through manufacturing. We showed the drawing-less version here. Of course, you could also do a lot of this with 2D drawings as well, right? SolidWorks Inspection has an interface for 2D drawings, and along the way, you're going to be able to make, you know, everybody's familiar with making drawings in SolidWorks. Let me talk about one of our customers who's implemented the SolidWorks design and manufacturing process, Ring Brothers. This is actually, these two guys right here are Jim and Mike Ring. They own Ring Brothers. Like I said, they make very, very high-end custom cars. They'll take like an old muscle car and totally re-engineer it, remake all the parts. A lot of those parts are machined. A lot of those parts are actually 3D printed, so there's kind of a mix in there. And this is actually Matt Mosman here. Matt's their primary designer, parts designer. Now, the interesting thing is that Ring Brothers used to outsource everything that they did. They designed the parts, but they'd outsource everything. But Jim and Mike found that they wanted to get better finishes. They wanted to be able to really control that manufacturing process. So using SolidWorks CAM, they were able to actually bring in thousands of parts and actually take their parts that they used to outsource, Matt programmed them, and now they machine them in-house. So they use SolidWorks, they use our analysis tools, and if you notice there, they're using MBD also, model-based definition, right? So model-based definition allows you to create your 3D dimensions and tolerances without ever having to make a 2D drawing, all right? So a lot of people do this already. When they go to CAM programming or they go to manufacturing, I've done surveys on this, probably 80% of the people out there send the 3D model and maybe they send a critical defunction drawing with that. Well, instead of sending a critical defunction drawing, you could actually send the 3D model with the dimensions and tolerances directly in it. So this is SolidWorks MBD. Then of course, SolidWorks CAM, where you're able to do your CAM programming, and then you see the simulation of the CAM programming and then the real CAM programming on the right. So Ring Brothers, a great example of a company who's implementing this strategy, our design and manufacturing process solution, from basically from concept all the way through, manufactured parts. So,
all right, so let's just jump into, we're right around that 22-minute mark, so I'm going to launch the next poll question. If you want to start shameless plug here, let us know, what you're interested in. That would be great. So I'll give it a second and close that out. All right. Awesome. All right. And then we're going to do our last one. And would you like any further information from us? Give that a few seconds. All right. Okay, and I will close that out as well. All right, now we're going to jump in and take a look at some of the questions and then wrap everything up. So Craig, I'll kick it back over to you and take a look.
Sounds good. Hey, John, you have a few questions that I don't know if you've been monitoring any of this. Hang on a second. I'm having a little trouble expanding the questions area. Hold on just a second.
Tear it off, Craig, and then you can expand it.
Undock it. There we go. Okay, I'm good. All right. So let's see here. Some people. Oh, okay. So questions. How well does SolidWorks integrate into non-SolidWorks CAM packages? SolidWorks has many partners. So we have gold CAM partners as well. And there are different levels of integration. SolidWorks CAM, we feel, it has the best integration for doing design and manufacturing, where if you do configurations, if you do all the things that you want to be able to do in SolidWorks and update, it has the ability to understand things like current dimensions. So there are multiple offerings. There's gold CAM partners as well as SolidWorks CAM when it comes to integrated CAM for SolidWorks. Let's see here. Oop, I think some people were putting in their answers to the poll questions here. So for sheet metal parts, okay, So for people who are doing sheet metal parts, Mike, are you online?
Yep, I'm here.
So obviously, SolidWorks is very strong in sheet metal. When you look at the usage of SolidWorks, it's somewhere around 80% of our users use SolidWorks sheet metal. We also have the ability to program for sheet metal also. Mike, maybe you want to talk a little bit about that? In SolidWorks.
Yeah, so in my prior life, we ran lasers with the equivalent of SolidWorks CAM Professional. Before SolidWorks CAM existed, it was CAMWorks 2.5 axis. We ran NestingWorks and SolidWorks CAM Professional to run our lasers and automate that, where all of the design stayed in the SolidWorks module. We didn't do any exporting or anything like that, and we had everything set up through rules-based machining to automatically identify lead in and lead out based upon material type and thickness. So if you adjust the rules correctly or to your manufacturing process, then everything works fairly seamless.
Mike, another one for you. Is SolidWorks CAM Professional an additional product, or is it included with SolidWorks Professional or Premium?
No, SolidWorks CAM Professional is an individual add-on product. It is not part of any of the CAD packaging. SolidWorks CAM Standard is part of any CAD package on subscription, but CAM Pro is a separate add-in.
So Mike, a lot of CAM questions. Why don't you describe what's in SolidWorks CAM Standard versus Professional?
Yeah, so CAM Standard is 2.5 axis on single parts. So that could be milling machine, laser, water jet, plasma, anything that's a standard 2.5 axis profile. When you go to SolidWorks CAM Professional, you get all the benefits of CAM Standard along with 3+2 machining, so indexing 4th and 5th axis, 2-axis turning, no live tooling, assembly machining, and then high-speed machining using volume mill for 2.5 axis.
Yep. And there was a question, so does SolidWorks have a CAM module for sale? So just so you know how you get SolidWorks CAM, if you have SolidWorks Standard and if you're on subscription, you will have access to SolidWorks CAM Standard, as Mike just described. You can also, there's also the advanced version, SolidWorks CAM Professional, like Mike just described. Yep, we answered sheet metal.
For nesting, it would be NestingWorks today. Would be a good add-in. There are multiples out there, but there's a question on nesting.
Yep.
That would be like NestingWorks.
Okay. And do you have and support post-processors? Mike?
So post-processors are a great conversation piece for any CAM application. So SolidWorks CAM ships with a list of standard post-processors, just like all of our 40+ CAM partners we have in the partner program. There's also universal post generator software that is downloadable from the CAMWorks website, which allows people to make and adjust their own posts. And then the third method is they can go to a reseller and resellers can create a custom post for them. There are certain resellers like Hawkridge Systems that has a website of freely downloadable posts today, and you can also reach out to them and they're happy to write posts for anyone, anywhere. So we have a great support system on top of the standard posts that come with it or the UPG that you can download from the CAMWorks website.
Okay. And question, do you plan to do a webinar that focuses on the CAM add-in? Yes. In fact, Mike thought he was doing that one today.
Yeah.
So I think that one's going to be in March, sometime in March. Remember, Mike, what we said? Was it March? I think it was March.
I'd have to go back to my emails. I was reading through the questions. There's a question about CMM programming, which Origin Checkmate does that today. If any of you are at SolidWorks World, we will actually have a shop floor set up, and Origin will be there running inspection based off SolidWorks MVD and SolidWorks Inspection. So I would recommend checking that out if you're going to be at SolidWorks World.
So the other question,
yeah, so
in terms of the webinar on CAM will be March 27th. Same times offered.
March 27th, great. Yeah, also, just to re-emphasize that, so at SolidWorks World, we have a series, what we call tracks. One of the tracks is a manufacturing track. So if you're going to SolidWorks World, you can attend all the breakouts on manufacturing, learn more about CAM. There's also in the middle of the partner pavilion, or actually in the kind of the back corner near the lunch area, I guess, we're going to have a demonstration area that's going to show basically design through manufacturing, right? So we have CNC equipment there. We have some CMM machines there. You'll be able to talk to people about how you go from basically design through manufacturing with all these different applications.
There's been a couple questions on the cost of CAM Professional. I would recommend you reach out to your reseller. They can provide you with the pricing on that.
Great. So we're going to hang on for a little while longer and just keep answering some more questions, but I think we're kind of at the end of our presentation here, 11:30.
All right, great. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate your time. Until next time.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.